Imagine a 10-year-old boy born into poverty. One morning, without telling anyone, he disappears. His family believes he is dead. But one day, a convoy of black cars stops in front of an old house. A man in a suit steps out, and then, hearts stop. It's him, the missing boy. But behind this incredible return lies a secret. How did a child with nothing become a powerful man? His parents' reaction will break your heart. In a small, remote village lived a boy named Alien. He was just 10 years old. His mother, a kind and courageous woman, had been gravely ill for several weeks. A rare, complicated disease that required urgent surgery. His father had tried everything to save his wife. He had sold almost everything he owned. Then, running out of hope, he had borrowed a large sum from an influential man in the village, 100,000. An overwhelming debt. But fate was cruel. The harvests were poor. Luck ran out, and the money was impossible to repay. One evening, the man to whom he owed the sum showed up at their door. His tone was cold, cutting. He publicly accused Alien's father of lying, weakness, and betrayal. And when the father, his voice trembling, explained that he had nothing left to give, the man's gaze fell on the only thing they still possessed, their small patch of land. He took it mercilessly, without even leaving a word of hope. This land was everything to them, their work, their food, their dignity. That evening, silence fell upon the house. The father, the mother, the little sister, and young Alien sat there, wordless in the quiet gloom. Only the wind could be heard slipping through the mud walls. Alien listened to his parents' broken whispers, the despair in his father's voice, his mother's stifled sobs, and in his young heart that night, something had just shattered. That night, his parents' words echoed in Alien's head. Our land is no longer ours. If we don't get it back, how will we live? The father spoke with a broken voice. The mother wept softly, and the young boy listened. Every sentence, every silence, fell into his heart like a stone into water. So without telling anyone, an idea crossed his mind. A crazy idea, an idea that would change his life. He got up in the middle of the night, wearing the same torn clothes, his bare feet on the cold earth. And without looking back, he left the house. He walked for a long time, guided only by the moonlight, until he reached a small train station at the edge of the village. There, he sat on a wooden bench, watching the passing trains. When a distant convoy finally stopped, he climbed aboard. No ticket, no plan, just hope. The train pulled away into the night, carrying a 10-year-old child and an unknown destiny. Hours passed. Hunger gnawed at him, but he grit his teeth. At dawn, the iron machine stopped in a huge, noisy city, full of people and lights. Alien stepped out, his eyes wide. It was the first time he had seen so many cars, so many roads, so many buildings touching the sky. Everything moved too fast, everything seemed too big for him. And yet, he didn't back down. He told himself, I will not return empty-handed. He walked for a long time through the streets, not knowing where to go, until the smell of hot food made his head spin. A small roadside restaurant filled with drivers who had come to eat and laugh before leaving. His stomach was crying out for food, but he had nothing, not a single coin. And that's where the first test of his new life would begin. Under the burning city sun, Alien timidly approached a kind-faced man. He clasped his hands, his voice trembling. Sir, I'm hungry. I'm looking for work, any kind. I can do anything you ask. Please. The man, a truck driver, looked at him for a long time, his dusty clothes, his eyes full of exhaustion. He immediately understood that this kid wasn't lying. Listen, kid, he said gently. I don't have room right now, but go talk to the restaurant owner over there. Maybe he can help you. Alien nodded. But before leaving, he murmured again. I don't want money, sir. Just give me food and I'll do everything else. The driver was silent for a moment. Then a faint smile escaped him. All right, get in with me. You'll help me on the road. And that was the beginning of a new life. Alien became his assistant. He loaded the bags, cleaned the cab, and fetched food when the driver needed it. He slept in the truck, ate little, but he learned. Every day, he watched how the man drove, how he talked to clients, how he negotiated deliveries. Time passed. The thin, shy boy became a strong, silent, determined teenager. One evening, while they had stopped near a warehouse, He looked at his mentor and said calmly, "Boss, I'd like to learn to drive." The man gave him an astonished, then gentle look. "Drive? But you're still too young, kid, you're not even 18. "I know, but I want to learn. One day, I'll have my own truck." A silence. Then the driver nodded, and the next day, he showed him how to hold the wheel, how to feel the road, how to listen to the engine, as one listens to a beating heart. It was the beginning of a secret apprenticeship between a man who still believed in goodness and a child who refused to remain poor. Years went by. Alien now drove like a true professional. Even before getting his license, he already mastered the road better than many adults. But on his 20th birthday, he did things by the book. He passed his exam, obtained his license, and prouder than ever, he rented his first truck. It was a new freedom. Every morning, he hit the road. Standing against the wind, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He earned a good living, 30, sometimes 35,000 a month. And every coin, he kept preciously. He wanted to build something big. One evening, the road was long, dark, and deserted. His truck was loaded with precious goods. The engine purred softly when suddenly, a few meters in front of him, a flash of metal, a dull noise, a car, or rather what was left of it. The vehicle was overturned on the roadside, twisted like paper, the body crushed, silence after the impact. Without thinking, Alien braked sharply and stopped his truck. He ran out, his heart pounding. Inside the car, a woman lay unconscious, her face covered in blood. He felt his heart race, but not a moment of hesitation. He carefully lifted her, carried her to his truck, and sped off again. The road seemed endless. Every minute counted. Finally, he reached a hospital. There he had her admitted, filled out the papers, and stayed for 2 whole days watching over her, sleepless, unwilling to leave. And then one morning, as the sun broke through the window, the woman finally opened her eyes. "Are you feeling better?" he asked. "You are safe now." She looked at him, lost, her voice still weak. Was it you who saved me?" Alien nodded, a slight smile on his lips, but he didn't yet know that this encounter was going to change his destiny far more than he could imagine. Truck drivers, as you know, work hard, very hard. But the smartest ones, those who know the road well, know how to save fuel, how to negotiate routes, how to make ends meet. Alien learned quickly, very quickly. Thanks to his intelligence and courage, he saved every bill, every coin, until the day he finally had enough money to realize his dream, buying his own truck. He was no longer a simple employee. From now on, he drove for himself, free, proud. 4 months, he drove tirelessly. His truck was new, shiny. It was almost like a promise of success. And then one morning, the phone rang. A woman's voice, soft but slightly hurt, resonated on the other end of the line. "So, young man, 3 months have passed and you haven't checked in once. You saved my life, and since then nothing." Alien gave a slight, somewhat embarrassed smile. "Forgive me, madam, I work day and night, but tomorrow I'll be passing through your city for a delivery. I promise I'll come see you." The woman hesitated for a moment, then replied in a calm voice, "Very well, I'll be waiting." What Alien didn't know yet was that this woman was not just anyone. Her name was Mila. Widowed for several years, she alone ran several flourishing businesses. A strong woman, respected and admired for her courage. The next day, Alien arrived in the big city. After parking his truck and finishing his delivery, he drove towards Mila's residence. An elegant, sober house steeped in history and silence. When she opened the door, she gave a sincere, almost tender smile. "Finally you're here," she said softly. "Come in, I have a lot to tell you." At that moment, Alien didn't know it yet, but this meeting was about to open a completely new chapter in his life. The atmosphere was warm. She invited him to sit down, introduced him to her children, 2 polite, smiling young girls. They shared a simple but sweet breakfast, as if chance had wanted to recreate a family around that table. Then, after a moment of silence, Mila looked at him kindly. "Tell me, Alien, where do you come from? Where do your parents live?" The young man slowly inhaled. His eyes darkened as if a shadow from the past crossed his gaze. "My parents live in Kandara," he said in a low voice. "A village lost between the hills and the dust. I haven't been back in a long, long time. I promised them I would only return one day, The day I became someone great, the day I could offer them a better life. Mila was silent for a few seconds, touched by his determination. Then she gently continued. You drive a truck, but with your intelligence, you could do so much more. Have you ever thought about changing paths? Alien gave a slight smile. Madam, when I was a child, I left home with nothing. The first profession that opened its arms to me was driving. It's thanks to the road that I survived, learned, and grew. I feel alive when I hold a wheel. It's all I know how to do, and all I love. Mila listened carefully. Then suddenly, she placed her hand on his in a maternal gesture. Don't call me madam anymore, call me Mom. Alien froze, surprised. Mom. Yes, you saved my life, she said with restrained emotion. Since that day, I haven't stopped thinking about you. My husband left too early, I miss him every day. But today, I feel like a son has been returned to me. Her eyes shone with a rare sincerity. Listen, she said softly. I have several workshops to manage all by myself, and sometimes it's difficult. I want you to come work with me, not as a driver but as my own son. I'll teach you everything I know, and together we'll make this house grow. Something changed in Alien's gaze. For the first time since his childhood, he felt the warmth of a real home. I want you to stay here, she calmly whispered. Stay with me. Help me manage my businesses. I can't carry everything alone anymore. Alien remained silent for a moment, then he replied with respect. Mom, I am grateful, but I have my own truck. It's my life. I prefer to continue on the road. Mila smiled, patient, almost maternal. Listen, my son, you have nothing to lose. Leave your truck with someone trustworthy. Rent it out. You'll continue to earn an income from it. And here by my side, I will pay you an honest salary. 300,000 a month. 300,000. The word echoed in Alien's mind like an unreal sound. He stared at her, incredulous. 300,000 just to help you manage the business? Yes, Mila replied simply. You are intelligent. You understand figures, roads, trade. You have a merchant's eye. I want you with me, not as an employee, but as support as my son. Alien felt something give way inside him. This was no longer an offer, it was an outstretched hand, a trust he had never known. The next day, he entrusted his truck to a loyal friend. You drive it, he said. Run it as you wish, but at the end of the month, you give me the agreed sum, and take care of it. It gave me everything. Then Alien returned to Mila. That day, a new page opened. He discovered a different world, busy offices, warehouses full of colorful fabrics, clients coming from everywhere. Thanks to his experience in transport and logistics, he quickly learned to lead, to plan, to negotiate. In a few months, the company prospered even more. And Mila, proud, saw in him the son she never had. The years passed 4, then 5. She offered Alien a large house in the city, a quiet, spacious place where some evenings he simply liked to sit, look at the sky, and tell himself that perhaps he was no longer alone. Time passed, and little by little, Alien's destiny took the shape he had always imagined. He had become an accomplished, rich, respected, and admired man. This little boy, the one who once had nothing, now possessed everything. Under Mila's direction, he now managed the entire company. Decisions, contracts, figures, everything passed through him. And Mila, proud, saw her dream fulfilled through him. She now called him my son, without hesitation, without awkwardness. One morning, as he was getting ready to leave for the office, his phone rang. It was her voice deeper than usual. Alien, get ready quickly. We have to go somewhere. It's important. Intrigued, Alien put on his suit, fastened his watch, and went out without asking questions. In front of the door, a black car was waiting for him. A luxurious, shiny sedan, with a driver. He got in and saw that Mila was already inside. Her gaze was calm but mysterious. Get in, she simply said. We have a long journey. The car set off in silence. They arrived at the main station. Mila had planned everything. 2 tickets, an air-conditioned compartment, the journey organized down to the smallest detail. Alien didn't ask any questions, but deep inside, a strange feeling was born, as if this journey was going to take him back to where everything began. The train started moving, slowly gliding through the landscapes. Fields, villages, hills flashed by like memories you glance at. Hours passed, and when the train finally slowed down, Mila gently placed her hand on his arm. "We get off here," she said softly. Alien looked up. The name of the station appeared before him, and his heart tightened. It was the region of his childhood. He didn't dare say anything. Perhaps she knew. Perhaps she wanted to offer him the greatest gift, to see those he had left behind again. They got off the train. Outside, about 10 black cars were already waiting for them, lined up as if for a ceremony. Drivers in suits, security guards, watchful eyes. Mila had prepared everything. Everything was ready for something. But what? Alien felt a familiar tension growing in him, like before a storm. The cars left the station in an almost solemn silence. In the front black sedan were Mila and Alien. Behind them 10, maybe 15 cars followed, forming a long shining line that swallowed the road like a river of metal. At every crossroads, the inhabitants stopped, stunned. Eyes looked up, whispers swelled. People wondered who could be arriving with such a procession. Dust rose. The engines rumbled softly, and soon the convoy entered Alien's small village. Children ran behind the cars, elders stood frozen as if watching a dream pass before their eyes. And then the vehicles slowed down. The first one stopped in front of a modest house, a little worn by time, the one where everything had started. In front of the door, an old man and an elderly woman were sitting on a wooden chair, their eyes lost in the evening emptiness. They stood up immediately, troubled by the noise, the dust, the presence of all these strangers in suits. Silence fell. The car doors opened. Alien slowly stepped out of the car. Dark suit, humble gaze, he took a few steps, then stopped right in front of them. Without a word, he knelt down. He touched the feet of the man and the woman and murmured in a trembling voice, "Father, Mother, it's me." The old man started. The woman blinked several times as if to chase away a dream. Who are you?" she asked in a broken voice. Alien slowly lifted his head. His eyes were full of tears. "It's me, your son." A silence, then a cry. The mother put her hands to her mouth, unable to speak. The father stepped back as if reality was still escaping him. Could this boy, this man in a suit surrounded by cars, really be their child? And yet in his voice, in his gaze, there was the same spark, that of the little boy they had lost so long ago. As soon as he spoke the words, "Father, Mother, it's me," a cry of shock escaped, and suddenly, tears gushed out. Alien's mother fell into his arms, trembling, crying like a child. His father stood frozen for a few seconds, then, unable to hold back, took his son in his arms. They all three sobbed without a word, just the sound of breathing, tears, and hearts beating too fast. Their neighbors watched from afar. Some couldn't believe what they were seeing. This son, whom everyone thought dead, had returned, alive and become a powerful man, surrounded by a convoy, and yet still the same son. When the crying finally subsided, the father spoke in a trembling voice. "Tell me, my son, why? Why did you leave that day without saying anything? Where were you all this time?" asked his father, his voice shaking. Then, Alien told them everything. The escape, the hunger, the train taken in secret, the years of work, the truck. Mila, the company. Every word seemed both real and unreal, like a story that would be hard to believe, and yet it was his. Then, his voice a little broken, Alien asked, "And that land, our only land? What happened to it after I left?" The old man sighed. "After your disappearance, we tried everything. We even filed a complaint. The owner to whom I owed money threatened us every day. We thought he had made you disappear. For years we searched, looked, asked around. Then after a while, we had to accept the unacceptable. We believed you were dead, my son." The words hung heavy, heartbreaking. Alien, his eyes full of tears, gently took his father's hand. "Father, that time is over. Today, nothing and no one can humiliate us anymore." Around them, the rumor had spread throughout the village. People rushed over, whispering, eyes wide. "The lost son, the one they thought was dead. He has returned, and he is rich." Faces lit up. Neighbors approached, their gazes showing joy, astonishment, and respect. Mila, who had stayed slightly in the background, stepped forward in turn. Alien gently took her hand. "Father, Mother, this is the woman who gave me back a life, the one who reached out to me when I had nothing left." They greeted her with gratitude, and they all sat together there in front of the old house. They talked, they laughed, they cried a little more. And for the first time in 20 years in that house, family voices and a breath of peace were heard again. That night, Mila stayed in the village. For the first time, she slept far from her offices, her files, and all the hurried world she knew too well. When morning came, she took her leave, her heart light, as if something important had been repaired. Alien stayed for a few more days. Simple days, filled with laughter, memories, and meals shared on the dirt floor. His little sister, whom he had left as a child, had become a young woman. He looked at her tenderly, as if to catch up on lost time. Then he returned to the city, to the big house Mila had offered him, where everything shone with modernity. Alien finally found something he had long sought: peace. Years passed. His sister got married in a beautiful ceremony full of joy, music, and smiles. Alien, surrounded by his parents, was crying again, but this time they were tears of happiness. Now, everything he had promised the 10-year-old boy he once was, he had accomplished. He had left poverty, faced the road, built his luck, found his family, and in a corner of his heart, he knew that without Mila, none of this would have existed.